All right, hello there, history people. This is Mr. Brown, starting up my series now in 2020, where I left off so many years ago. So let's keep learning about Greece. Today I'm gonna deep dive into two Greek states, specifically Greek city-states, and these are some pretty interesting ones that I think have a big sort of theme with the United States. Sort of my guiding question is going to be: is America more like Athens, or are we more like Sparta? So let's check it out. If I can click on the dang thing. All right, there we go. So yeah, that's all of Greece, and here's all the multiple city-states. We're going to learn about two of these today. All right, so the first city-state you got to know about is the city-state of Athens. Athens was absolutely the largest city in Europe during the Greek Age. It was the center of learning. It was the center of culture. It was the center of art and dance and food and trade. And the Athenian people, they just loved money. Money was their favorite thing in the world, and they used it to build these pretty fantastic temples, the ruins of which are still in the city of Athens today. They were also a big sea traveling people. They made a lot of boats and ships and went all over the European, African, Middle East world. And obviously they're trading stuff. They're sailing these ships to make more money. They loved theater. A lot of like really classical plays are from this Greek time of Athens. And they also were the ones who originally created democracy, but that idea is so great they kind of spread it out to all of the other city-states. And yes, the big thing about Athens is they have this Acropolis, this huge hill in the middle of Athens where they built a bunch of temples on it, and it was sort of the center point of their government and the institutions of that city state. And I think a lot of these concepts we will see in America today. I mean, America is the big kind of cultural center of the world. We have the most learning in America today. We've got a lot of great colleges. So hopefully you can agree that parts of Athens culture still resonate with us today. All right, let me start bouncing through all this. So here's a picture of what Athens looked like way back when. What is this? Almost 3,000 years ago. These huge temples in the middle of the city on top of that hill. And then this is what it looks like today, so it's not as fantastic. But yeah, some of these Acropolis temples, they actually survived pretty well until around the year 1500 when some terrorists blew it up. Jerks. All right, and here's Greek theater. And we have pretty good knowledge that, for 2,000 years, the Greeks put on a lot of plays. And so many of the stories that y'all are comfortable with today were originally done in ancient Greece. So that's pretty cool. All right, now the next nation you have to know is the nation of Sparta. Sparta is the city-state that was kind of in the southern part of Greece. And Sparta had a very different culture than Athens, even though they had the same gods, the same language, ate the same food. They couldn't be any more different. Sparta didn't care about money so much. In fact, their whole culture was centered on war and violence. This is probably the most epic warrior culture I can think of in the history of the world. Also, Sparta was sort of this like half democracy, half monarchy, so they did have a king, but they're different. That's what you really have to know. And these Spartan soldiers, they were just tough dudes. They trained from their age of 6 to the age of 35. If a Spartan boy was born with any kind of deformities, they'd just be thrown away. So they were, kind of the supremacy sort of culture. And in fact, something that the Spartans continuously did was they would raid other city-states nearby, kidnap people, enslave them, and make them work for them for the rest of their lives. And these Spartan slaves were called helots. And 90% of the population of Sparta were helots. So you're probably thinking, hey, Mr. Brown, if 90% of the population is slaves, why don't they rise up and fight these Spartan warrior dudes? Well, first of all, just look at them, okay? One Spartan warrior could probably take on 100 helots and not even break a sweat. They kind of show the incredible power of the military, the power of violence that people can have over other people. And I mean, let's talk about America today. I mean, America is the biggest, best military in the world, and we can make a big old argument about how we kind of pick on other countries in the world today. So, is any part of Sparta's culture still with us? That's what we should ask. All right, cool. So, yeah, here's those Spartan warriors. They're pretty hardcore guys. There they are, helots, working away. All right, so this is something you absolutely have to know. The hoplites were hoplites is just another word for Greek soldiers, but it's kind of this specific strategy of fighting that the Greeks came up with. These Greek guys would be, really heavily armored. Hoplites would typically move really slow, and they would fight with these long spears. And these spears, they put them to really great use in a formation called a phalanx. And here's a picture of it down over here. So a phalanx is where you line up guys together and you create this, what is this, like 10-foot long spear wall. And imagine yourself in the ancient world and you're trying to fight a phalanx and all you have is a dagger, an axe, or a sword. I mean, what, you're going to throw your weapons at these guys and they're going to come at you and stab you with these epic spears. And other kids have told me in the past, Mr. Brown, couldn't they cut those spears? Well, those spears, they had wood on the outside, but they had metal on the inside, so you couldn't really cut them that easily. And even if you did somehow break one of the guy's spears, or one of these guys lose the spear, well, they're like 20 guys deep, so these guys can fill in the gaps and keep the phalanx moving. This battle formation makes you virtually invincible against other guys with melee weapons. And these guys have so much armor. I mean, arrows would do some damage to them, but they're almost invincible to arrows as well. The real disadvantage of the phalanx system is if somebody gets behind them, because kind of this whole system is zoned on keeping these spears in front and pushing the people in front of you. So the phalanx military strategy was the strategy of the ancient world. This was how soldiers fought in big battles. So yeah, here's the phalanx system right there. Look at those epic spears. These guys have so much armor. Holy cow. All right, another thing you should know, Greek ships called triremes, triremes. And triremes were the ship of the ancient world. There was kind of no other thought of how to get around on water. And you can kind of see a little bit in this picture, but triremes had just hundreds of enslaved guys rowing these like 100 oars. So the ships could actually go pretty fast. And in the event that two Greek nations were at war with each other, the whole strategy is to sort of use the trireme as a battering ram and to hit the enemy on its sides. Because these triremes have these epic iron spears in the front of them, and you could just bash through another ship. Alternatively, you could do a boarding action, and then you're basically just fighting with swords and spears on top of these boats as if they were land. So here's the trireme just smashing another ship. Pretty epic. All right, so what you got to know is the Greeks were not the big, powerful empire. I mean, as I said in the last video, they never were united. They were always fighting each other. And what happened was, what is this, around the year 492 BC, so this is 2,500 years ago, the big superpower country of that time was Persia. And Persia assembled an army, and it's rumored to have been 1 million men big, and they said, we're going to take over all these Greek city-states one at a time. And the Greeks should have immediately united together and tried to fight back against this 1 million man army. That eventually happens, but in the beginning they were still like kind of at war with each other. Thankfully, the Spartans made a pretty smart move, and they said, we know there's one spot in this mountain pass called Thermopylae where all the Persians are going to have to fight us. So they put 300 Spartans there, and they held off this 1 million man army for 3 days, and they killed something like 30,000 guys. So, I mean, what, for each Spartan that died, it was like 100 or 1,000 Persian guys who died? That's ridiculous. So they showed sort of how, with the proper training and the right sort of cultural acumen, you could defeat a enemy thousands of times bigger than you. I mean, the Spartans did all eventually die, but they took Persians with them. And another battle that happened during these Persian wars was the Battle of Marathon. And that was when a bunch of these Persian guys got on boats, tried to invade another part of Greece, but the Greeks were waiting for them on the beach. They fought the Persians and they beat them. And what happened was one of these Greek messengers ran all the way back to, I think it was the city of Athens. It might have been another city, but he ran 26.2 miles. And when he got to the destination city, he shouted, hey, everybody, we won the battle. You don't have to evacuate the city. We're victorious. And then he passes out and dies. So I think that's funny that marathons are what people do for fun nowadays, when historically speaking, it led to a runner's death. So not a fan. All right, that's the Persian War. So here's the Spartans battling it out in Thermopylae, just being savages. All right, and then, oh yeah, that's the Trireme. Yep. Okay, why am I going backwards now? Oh, I'm clicking the wrong button. Of course, I'm an idiot. All right, yep. So there's the it's done in Lego. That's amazing. And then, yep, there they are battling it out at Marathon. All right, so this is where history gets pretty rough for our Greek friends. As soon as they beat the Persians, you would hope that they could have peace in our time and everybody would be happy and get along. That does not happen. When they do finally beat the Persians, Athens and Sparta create something called the Delian League. I'm never going to test you on that. And in the Delian League, Athens and Sparta sort of own the other smaller Greek city-states. And for a while, there was this peaceful period. But eventually what happens is an event called the Great Peloponnesian War. It's still a big debate over which side started the war, but ultimately Greece turned into a madhouse, crazy civil war and it was basically Athens versus Sparta, and they just fought each other tooth and nail to the bitter end. I think something like 50% of everybody in Greece died. It was bad. In the end, Sparta eventually won the war. However, Greece never recovered at the end of this. Like, Greece is not going to be important for the historical legacy for the rest of world history because they were so thoroughly depopulated and destroyed. And I think the lesson we can learn is that Greece was this incredible culture, this incredible power, and they could have been great if they just united and combined their different ideas about culture and society together. Sadly, they didn't. And it cost them. It cost them, for the rest of time, I could argue. I mean, Greece is cool now, but they're not a major power in the world or anything like that. So, yeah, the Great Peloponnesian War, the end of Greek dominance, that is for sure. All right. So, now I'll talk about this in the next video. All right, cool. So that's it for me. Peace out.